TBCN presents Creating Your Own Job, a new series aimed at providing you with resources and assistance to start your own business. Financial assistance, analyzing the marketplace, marketing strategies, implementing the plan, creating your own job.
Welcome to another episode of Creating Your Own Job. Today we're going to be talking about how to do business with the government. I'm Louise, Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of Tampa Bay Community Network, which provides video production training and a place for you to put your own programming on. Call us if you have a show idea and you'd like to learn about how to do that. With us today, very fortunate for us, are some of the people that are in charge of purchasing or know a lot about purchasing or doing business with the government. We have Jean Bowman, who's the General Manager of Procurement at Hillsborough County Public Schools. Welcome.
Thank you.
Jean, glad you could be here. Greg Spearman, thank you for coming, Director of Purchasing for the City of Tampa.
Thank you.
We appreciate your being here. Chris Harrington, the Director of Small Business Programs, and you'll explain to me what TILO stands for.
Yes, ma'am.
At USSOCOM, Special Operations Command, right here in Tampa. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Charlene Bostic, Procurement Manager, Procurement Technical Assistance Center. USF likes long titles, but it's USF's SBDC, Small Business Development Center. So welcome to all of you, and we'll go around, and starting with Eugene, if you tell a little bit about your job down at the school district.
Tell you a little bit about the district itself. We're number 8 in the country in size.
Number of students, that means, right?
Number of students, yes. We have over 192,000 students. We have 1,600 teachers in our district. In procurement, we buy goods and services for the district, which includes everything from janitorial, construction, everything you can imagine in a district our size. We have 260 schools, so we have numerous buildings, over 300 buildings in the district, and
your job is to?
My job, I'm the Director of Procurement, or the General Manager of the Procurement Department, and we oversee all the purchases except for the construction.
Which is in a whole other department.
It is.
Right. Okay. Greg, tell us about the City of Tampa's function.
City of Tampa's Purchasing Department is responsible for the acquisition of all material, supplies, equipment, maintenance and operating supplies for the City of Tampa. We have a budget of about $170 million, and we also manage 9 warehouses throughout the city. Like Jean, we do everything except construction. That's actually handled by a separate department. We also have a small local business enterprise program, which we'll talk about a little bit more later on, and also a minority business development program. And purchasing is also responsible for the disposition of surplus property. So anything that we no longer need, we will dispose of that. And I'd like to tell this little quick story. If you look at a police officer and everything that we buy for him, including the car and the vehicles, and if you take everything away that we buy, he'd be down to his underwear.
And aren't you buying them khakis, I understand, for this upcoming RNCE? Did I not read that?
We're buying them a lot of equipment for the RNC.
I'll bet you are. Items, right? I just wanted to, you didn't mention the word services. Is there also services that come under the purchasing department?
Absolutely. We buy all types of professional services, accounting services, auditing services, computer technology services, janitorial services, pest control services, you name it. We buy a lot of services contracts.
Okay, great. Chris?
Yes, ma'am. I'm the Director of Small Business in TILO at United States Special Operations Command. We have a budget of about $3.2 billion per year. Billion.
Just here in Tampa alone?
Yes, ma'am. Contracts within SOCOM, some are geographically separated units that spend that money. But the command in and of itself spends about $3.2 billion. Wow. Of that, about $800 million a year go to small businesses on prime dollar awards. So we are about 25 to 30% of our dollars are going directly to small businesses.
How do you define a small business? Because I know there's different ways people do that.
It depends on the NAICS code and what we're buying. It may be based on revenues, it may be based on employees, depending on what we're buying. We buy everything except for construction as well. We don't buy that. We send that to the 6th Contracting Squadron or the Corps of Engineers, but we won't buy that. But we do products and services to support the warfighter. That's our mission, is to execute the war on terrorism.
Charlene?
And I manage the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, often called PTAC, and our responsibilities are to help small businesses, large business, do business with the government, whether it's federal, state, local government. That's our role. We help with certifications. We help identify NAICS codes, as Chris mentioned, which stands for North American Industrial Classification Code, that identifies each product and services. So our mission is to help those businesses and help them be successful.
You do that through consulting and education
Yes,
training?
ma'am. Consulting, training, and our services are at no cost. Our training classes, some are no cost, some are minimum, depending on the material that we offer during the classes. But we provide all those resources basically at no cost to the small business.
So I understand that the administration got involved in small businesses to have contracts. Can you address that for me, Chris?
The Small Business Jobs Act was signed into law in 2010. There's quite a few different aspects of the law. I'll just cover probably the most important piece for small businesses. Previously, before this act was passed, when you had a small business procurement, the first order of priority was to go to a hub zone, which is a historically underutilized business zone. That was the first priority in the FAR. The Jobs Act changed that. So now that if a procurement is going to be set aside for a small business, the contracting officer, he or she, has wide latitude in the type of set aside they want to do. So instead of having to go hub zone first, we can go hub zone first, we can go women owned, we can go service disabled, veteran owned small business, or small disadvantaged business. So it gives the contractor wide latitude, and that had a huge impact on small business because now they're all considered equal. There is no preference. The act also talked about SBA loans and making it easier for small businesses to get loans. But the main thing, at least from where I sit, is the parity rule, which is allowing all small businesses to be considered
Equal footing.
Equal footing.
Now, you named 4 categories, did you? Is that the
Yes,
same
ma'am.
everywhere?
That's federally speaking.
That's right. We're DOD.
Okay, is that
Department
the
of
same
Defense.
thing that happens with the city of Tampa?
The city has a slightly different program, Small Local Business Enterprise Program, and we define a small business as a business that has 25 or fewer employees. The annual gross receipts cannot exceed an average of $2 million over a 3-year period, and they have to be located within a 5-county area. And for the city, that's Pinellas, Polk, Hernando, Hillsborough, and Pasco counties. And if you meet that definition by the city, once we validate your information, you fit the definition of a small business. And with our program, if we have 3 or more businesses that fit that definition for any particular product category, or NAICS code or NIGP code, we actually will shelter the solicitation. We pull that out of our normal bidding process and only allow the small businesses to compete. And the program has been very, very successful.
Do you get points for one of these categories above others? I mean, you just made yours kind of equal, but if you're a veteran, for example, or disabled, are they scored in some way, or you just decide we're going to go after this particular type of business at this point in time?
Right. For example, at SOCOM, we have small business goals that we negotiate with OSD, Office of Secretary of Defense. So we have goals that are set, and everybody in the command understands what those goals are. We have, in the past, had challenges meeting our service-disabled veteran-owned small business goal. So the Director of Procurement, Colonel Burgo, and myself, we got together and decided that, hey, we're going to make a concerted effort to go service-disabled. I mean, we're warfighting command, we should be able to support our service-disabled veterans.
Right.
So if you look at our Fed Biz Ops, where we advertise all of our procurements on the unclassified side, that you'll see that the majority of them for us, since we have wide latitude, is we're going to set them aside first for service disabled. And that's why the parity rule, or part of the Small Business Job Act, became so important. That gave us the wide latitude to select. But we don't get any extra credit whether we award to a small business or a service disabled business or a hub zone. And we get no extra credit for any of that. But we do have goals that we're trying to
So,
reach.
so rather than just the broad category of disabled, it's service disabled.
disabled.
So it's someone who got disabled in the service, which,
Right, when you retire from the military, you leave the military, you have a physical, and then the VA determines whether you are considered disabled. And they make that determination, and you'll get a letter that says that you are disabled and it's service connected. That's the key.
Okay.
It has to be service connected.
how do you do it at the school board? How do you
We have-
prioritize in this manner as well?
No, we have a small business encouragement program. And much like Greg was just talking about, our qualifications are 100 employees or less. It's 3 million or less in net worth. And you have to be in the 7 contiguous counties. In addition to the counties that Greg mentioned, we have Hernando and Sarasota. So if you're in one of those counties and you qualify and you are certified within by other, we don't certify ourselves at the district, but we use Greg's certification at the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County, and there's several others that we accept. And if you qualify for all of that, you're, become a member of our small business encouragement program. And we do provide extra points when we're looking at requests for proposals. So in sense, we provide extra points for our small business. And we have some great features in our program where most of our vendors get paid in 45 days. Our small business people get paid in 14. And with direct deposit to their accounts. So it's we make it with educational
easier.
programs and much
14
easier.
days, a small business can't wait a lot of
Right,
times
it's very
for
helpful.
30 or 60 days.
Yeah.
Can a person just starting a business get into doing business with the government, or do they have to have some kind of a history already?
In our program, they have to be qualified as a small business. They do have to be in business a year. But then we have a lot of other people that can partake in business with the district that do not have to meet that qualification.
It depends. It depends on the government, which government agencies, what program they want to fall up under. So it's a certain period of time. For an example, the federal government have a certification that's called 8A, meaning that you have to be in business for 2 years. Your personal net worth cannot exceed $250,000, excluding primary residence and equity in the business, and they must be a minority or a woman to participate in that program. But you can start a business today and, by luck, get a contract. But under a regular normal contract, not under an 8A set aside.
8A is the number 8?
The number 8, the letter A.
Okay.
Yes,
And
it's the SBA program.
you talked about certifications, and I remember when I owned my marketing company years ago that I had clients and we got them MBE or Women Business Enterprise, but we had to get them. Am I remembering this right? We had to get the city and the state and the county and the whatever. And you don't have to do that anymore, right?
Well,
Get all of them?
It's one of those things that the city and the county are working on, and we'll be talking with the school system about this too, is to get a unified certification. Because most small businesses will have to go to different agencies and get certified by that particular agencies. And so there is an organization that exists within the Tampa Bay area that all of the minority business owners, in terms of the managers of these agencies, belong to. And they're working on coming up with a unified certification so that small businesses don't have to jump through the hoops of each one of those individual agencies. That's
Seems
the
like that
goal
was
that we're trying to
crazy.
work on.
Now, that's not true of builders, though, anymore, right? Because I think over time that I had building clients and construction clients, and they didn't have to get so many. Am I remembering this right?
I'm not really sure about the building and construction clients, but
That
I
they
know,
could get a state MBE or something,
Yes.
and then they didn't need additional ones?
even for the state, for this, an example, for the city of Tampa, we still have to certify those vendors because they have a different set, as Charlene talked about, of criteria. And unless they meet the criteria that's been specified by the city through ordinance, then they really can't be certified. So it will vary from organization to organization.
Charlene, how many certifications are there out there?
Federally speaking, there's 6 certifications. 4 are self-certified, and Chris mentioned being a small business, and that's based on your NAICS code, woman-owned business, veteran-owned business, and a service-disabled veteran-owned business. However, if you are a veteran or a service-disabled veteran, it's encouraged that they certify their status with the Department of Veteran Affairs. However, it's still self-certified. And then the 8A that I just mentioned, as well as the hub zone, historically underutilized business zones. Now those two, the latter requires an application process, and it is a stringent process. It takes approximately 90 days upon submitting your application to get approved.
Who identifies hub zones, and what are they here in our town? Or
It's
area in our county?
Various different areas. SBA identifies the various different locations, and to find out if your business is in a hub zone. And by the way, 35% of the employees must live in a hub zone. So first, your business must be located in such area, and 35% of employees must live in any hub zone. And if you go to sba.gov, under hub zone menu, you can plug in your address to see if you're located in a hub zone.
Oh, it'll tell you right there.
It'll tell you right then. You can also search just by county to see the various counties.
That's
that are
the
hub
SBA
zone.
website?
Yes, ma'am. www.sba.gov.
How does this work with nonprofits? We're a 501c3 that runs this community access center, and I just wondered, we're not, I know we were trying to get involved in the RNC and see if there was anything for us. And the host committee held some big meeting a couple of months ago, but we didn't fit it because we couldn't say we were, there's a lot of women who work here, but we weren't women-owned, we're a nonprofit. How does that work with any of you?
We do business, and I'm sure all of us can say this, all of us do business outside of our small business program, our set-aside program, whatever. And everybody reaches us, I think, through a website where they can register as a vendor. You know, we each have our own websites that we direct people to, and they can register as a vendor there, tell us all about them and their company, and actually sign up for the services and the products that they sell. And then when there is a bid or a quote opportunity, that is directly sent, and these individuals or the companies are notified of that opportunity. So that's how you do business with, I know, the district and with the city of Tampa.
Does the McDill do that the same way?
At SOCOM, we advertise all of our procurements on the unclassified side on Fed Biz Ops, anything over $25,000.
Fed Biz Ops.
Federal Business Opportunities.
.gov?
.gov, yes ma'am.
Okay.
And then any acquisition out there, whether it's McDill, whether it's SOCOM, whether it's any organization in the DOD or government, you can find it on that website. So we don't have any particular website where we just post SOCOM requirements. Now, we do have something very similar in that we have what we call a business partner network, where businesses, regardless of size, can go on our webpage and register. And that doesn't mean you're a SOCOM preferred vendor or anything like that. All that means is it's almost like a B2B type business arrangement so that other businesses can find each other to bid on our work. But
Oh, right, so you can go in partnership with someone if you don't have part of the...
Exactly.
What's
And we
needed.
also, yes ma'am, and we also use that internally for market research. If we have a requirement, we'll go out and review that website to see what companies are there. and we'll make sure that we would contact them if they're in that VPN.
So they're not automatically notified like perhaps the school board notifies them. You have to stay on top of Fed Biz Ops and just keep looking and checking it to make sure that no
Often.
bids come out.
Yes, ma'am, but you can, through the Fed Biz Ops, you can identify which procurements you are interested in, whether it's by base, by location, by NAICS code, and then you'll be identified and notified automatically.
Oh, you will be
through
notified
the
too.
Federal Business Opportunities website. But we as a command, we don't send out notification other than to Fed Biz Ops.
Okay.
And if I can add, that small business must position the company, set the company up to receive automatic notification. So
Right.
they have to be registered in a database that's called Central Contractor Registration, CCR. And
Is that under
and
federal government, under this?
on the
Fed
federal
Biz?
on the federal government, they have to be registered to do business, and on the FBO.gov, where you receive notifications, they have to register there to receive the automatic notification. If you're not registered, then you can't set the company up to receive automatic notification. But they still can search for opportunities without being registered. But the benefit of being registered is receiving automatic notification, setting the company up as such, as well as adding the company to the interested vendor list if they happen to see an opportunity that they're interested in.
And the city is very similar to that. We have a product known as DemandStar, DemandStar.com. And with that particular system, it's very similar to what Gene uses at the school. He uses vendor bid. When the vendors
And
register,
DemandStar.
and DemandStar. When the vendors register with DemandStar, they create a profile. When they create the profile, that allows them to choose, instead of the NAICS code, they choose the NIGP commodity code. When the city publishes a bid with a particular NIGP commodity code, let's say for example,
NGIP stands for?
National Institute of Governmental Purchasing.
Okay.
That's the standard for commodity codes for most governmental entities, local government, cities, counties, schools. They use that code as the standard. And you have the federal code that you just heard Chris and Charlene talk about. But when you register with DemandStar and you choose a code, let's say you do plumbing services, where you sign up and you use the plumbing code. When we publish a bid for plumbing services, we use that same code, you get the automatic notification. There's an
Okay, so you have to
opportunity.
get that organized.
Exactly. By setting up your profile as a vendor.
So one of the things I wonder about is, I remember years ago when I was running my PR business, there were people somewhat intimidated by doing business with the government because there's all kinds of rules and things like this, and maybe the proposals are complex sometimes.
Yes.
It depends.
Yes.
How do people deal with that? Because people who are watching this are interested in being able to get through that intimidation factor without having to hire somebody like me to go do it for them.
Understood. We do it in two ways. Education, we'll have forums in which we educate people on how to do business with the district. We'll also teach them how to use the website we were just talking about. These particular systems, the one that Greg and I use, DemandStar and VendorBid, has got a wealth of information in these systems for people to use. It tells you, because it's a totally open system, it can tell you, as the example that Greg gave, what the last suppliers bid on the plumbing.
The ones that
services bid.
won the deal?
Correct.
Yes,
So it's
yes.
a wealth of information. So we try to teach people how to look at that. What are the key, the scope of work in your proposals? We tell them what is important to sign. Literally, we walk them through that process. We also have an office, our small business, our OSD office of Supplier Diversity, is located here in the city on Martin Luther King Drive, and that's open. There are computers there for people to use. People walk them through how to register. That's open every day, Monday through Friday from 7:30 in the morning to 4 o'clock at night. So there's somebody there always to help.
And it's
you
all
can
school
walk
board
in.
related?
It's all
kind
school
of-
board related.
So if they didn't have access, they could go down there and access?
Absolutely.
And get through it that way. What about for McDill?
Well, ma'am, for the DOD, we use a system called FBDSNG, Federal Procurement Data System, New Generation. And it's basically the same thing where they can go on, log in. I'm going to be honest with you, it's not user-friendly. But once you get in there and start using it, then you can also find out how much the successful offer or bid last time, so that you can kind of get a gauge whether, are you going to be competitive or not.
Is this like, it has to be exactly similar then? The service you're after is exactly what the service was last year?
Well, sure, but it'll at least give you an idea. For example, if we buy let's just say a boat, and it's a 30-foot boat and it costs $1 million. Okay, well, if you have another 30-foot boat and you're going to bid $5 million, you probably have a problem. Okay, you're probably going to be too high. So at least gives you an idea. It may not be apples to apples, but it'll give you some comparison on what the successful offer bid last time. Another thing, as far as getting information on how to do business with us, I meet with small businesses and large businesses, although they don't need this type of support, all the time. That's what my job is, to try to help them. And typically, I'll sit with them and talk to them about what they do and how they potentially could help us. But then I usually send them to Charlene, because Charlene has more knowledge than I do on startups, and she has classes where I don't have classes. She has classes and other resources that can help those small businesses learn how to do business, not just with McDill or the DOD, but the state and local governments as well. And that's where a lot of them cut their teeth. So I will meet with them and try to help them, but I also help Charlene stay employed by sending them to Charlene.
Thanks for the referral.
And Charlene's phone's going to ring off the hook. But
That's okay.
we're going to take a break for a second, and we're going to come back, and Charlene's going to tell us a little bit about how she helps them figure that whole thing out.
Okay.
We'll be back in just a minute.
Tampa Bay Community Network, may I help you?
Hello, I would like to produce a TV show on your planet.
Great.
Do I have to be a Tampa resident?
No, you don't have to be from Tampa to take our video production training classes or to have a show on our channels.
Really? Well, I'm from another planet. Is that okay?
It's fine. Tampa Bay Community Network members come from Orlando, Valrico, Lakeland. They come from everywhere. Being from another planet is no problem. You're from our galaxy, right?
Yes, I am. How do I get started?
Sign up for orientation class. We have them twice a month and they are free.
I'm in. Sign me up.
Anyone over the age of 18 can take TBCN Video Production and Final Cut Pro edit classes, produce programming, and host programming right from our studios at the University Mall. Call 813-977-5200 today and sign up for our next orientation class, no matter what planet you're from.
And this is Billy when he was a baby.
He's so cute.
And this was his first school play. And this is Billy's graduation from grammar school. Wait till you see the videos I have. I have so many tapes. Let me find them.
No, I can't wait.
Wait till you see the potty training we did.
Mom, our VCR doesn't work anymore. We can't watch those tapes.
Kathy, now you can watch Billy's potty training video.
What do you mean?
I had all the tapes transferred to DVD at Tampa Bay Community Network. I didn't have to mail the tapes away, and I got them transferred very quickly.
Hi, I'm Hillsborough County Commissioner Kevin Beckner, and you're watching the Tampa Bay Community Network.
Welcome back to Creating Your Own Job. Today we've been talking about doing business with the government, and to reintroduce them, Jean Bowman from the Hillsborough County Public Schools, Greg Spearman from City of Tampa, Chris Harrington from the Small Business Program at USSOCOM, and Charlene Bostic from the Small Business Development Center at USF. So just before we broke, Chris told us that he sent all these people over to you, Charlene, and that he wanted you to help educate them on how to do business with the government. What do you do with them when you get them?
Thanks for the referral, Chris. I
You're
appreciate that. Keeps me in business, keep me employed. What we do is those businesses that need help with proposal, for an example, we assist them, go through the proposals with these businesses, make recommendation. If need be, I will contact the buyer to ask any questions. And oftentimes in the proposal, there's questions and answer periods. That's due at a certain period of time, and I encourage those businesses, ask any questions that you don't understand, in writing preferably. Also, if there's a site visit or a pre-bid meeting, attend them.
They have a lot of those required pre-bid meetings.
Absolutely, and if you don't meet
if
that,
you don't go, you can't even
non-responsive.
put it in.
You can put it in, but you're going to be non-responsive, so it's a waste of time. And I encourage businesses, especially ones that's starting out, attend a bid opening, just to get a feel. Attend the pre-bid meeting, just to get a feel of what's going on. And it's all about networking. You never know who you will meet. So if you attend these pre-bid meetings, site visits, pre-bid openings, or bid openings, it helps you. It helps you with the next proposal. And if you submit a proposal and you don't win, request for a debriefing. Find out what happened. Why didn't you not win that bid?
You can't always get that, though. We lost a couple of them here on nonprofit.
You can't
things,
always get the debriefing?
Well, I don't know if it's called a debriefing, but what I did was ask, we didn't get a couple of great ideas we had for video productions that we could do for at-risk youth, in fact. A couple of them were all about that, training kids in video production, thinking it would really actually help their confidence level, teach them to work together as a team, as one has to do when they're crewing a production or creating anything. And we didn't get them, and so I asked my staff to call and find out where we messed up. You know, just where did we get the fewest points as opposed to other people. And what we got back, this is probably not the government. It's probably some nonprofit agencies that we were doing this with, but they said we don't do that. And so we couldn't get a grip on well, you know, where do we need to put some more strength? Was it, you know, the way we said we'd evaluate the program? Was it the way we spelled out the program? You know, we knew that they had scoring in the criteria. I mean, what do you do then? You just...
Well, generally the government, you have that right to request for a debriefing. I don't know about, you know, the private or whatever the case may be, but the federal government, correct me if I'm wrong, the city, the county.
Local government, absolutely.
And the school board would provide that, so you'd let us know.
Absolutely.
You didn't, here's the criteria, and you didn't make it here.
In fact, when you're talking about posting the criteria, I mean, we actually post that and the scores, you know, on the websites we're talking about. So there's that information.
As well.
And then if you need additional information, we'll provide a debriefing session for you. And with our sunshine laws here in the state of Florida, you can get anything. So you just contact the communications office and you or everybody else's proposals. And we make copies, and it's yours.
Yeah, we talked about this on break for just a second, and I mentioned being asked by clients when I had my marketing business why they didn't get a particular bid, you know, could I help them with their proposals? And because I'd learned from the SBDC classes I took that I could go in and ask an agency for, can I have the top 5 finalists? Can I have their exact proposal? By the way, it took me a while to learn, can I please have the contract that you finally came up with? That was a very critical thing because I might have gotten the proposal of the top, the top 5 people and the winning one for sure and all the scoring, but I didn't realize until I was into maybe my 2nd or 3rd one, and it was because an employee said something. I said, hey, they came in and presented. This is for a construction bid. So these people all came in and presented, and I had them in front of me. I was having copies made. Why did you get so impressed by this guy? And the person said, well, during their final proposal, they offered us something not required in the proposal, something extra. So I said, could I see the contract? So when I looked at the contract, I could see that these people, during their proposal meeting, had said, look, you know, this is what we'll do for your employees as well. This was a, excuse me, that wasn't a construction company, that was a travel company for government entities. And they had offered to give discounts or help with any employee's vacation. But they didn't do that until in the proposal they did.
Well, you know.
So what happens then?
Again,
so then you don't know, you didn't know that you were at a disadvantage until.
They would have to be of the short list. You know, we typically narrow down the field to a short list.
Right.
Who makes presentations to a committee.
Right.
And after that presentation, you know, they narrow it down to their first, second, and third supplier that they'd like to talk to.
Right.
And we go back and we have the opportunity by law to ask for a best and final offer. And that's at that time when your vendor would provide you something extra that wasn't in the proposal. So you would not have seen that in the documents that you saw, but you'd see it in the contract.
And but that extra thing could have, and I think I learned that at the SBDC class, that if you go above and beyond the requirements, you maybe could win a bid even if your proposal's higher.
Well, it's like Jane was just talking about. Once we create the short list and you become a part of the short list and we have those one-on-one meetings with you, that's really an opportunity because we look at you on paper in terms of the RFP response. That tells us one thing, okay? But then to get you in a meeting, to invite you to come in and tell us more about your company, that really can make the difference sometimes in terms of how you scored on paper versus how you score with your oral presentation, plus additional things we may learn about the company. So that's an opportunity to really convince the government why you should be the contractor or service provider selected for a particular bid once you get that opportunity to present to them during their shortlisting process.
I noticed that the government, in some of the cases we've been involved in, has other people be the judges, not the employees themselves. Is that a rule, or it just sometimes happens?
The subject matter experts who are involved, that sit on the evaluation committee, plus we have someone from Minority Business Development, we may have someone from legal, and depending upon whether or not there is a risk element to the project, we may have risk management sit as part of the committee. So we try to have a diverse group of people so that the scoring is not stacked, but it's actually equally applied across the board. And then we would average those points in terms of each individual scoring for each individual proposer. So we try to make sure there's a blend in terms of the group of people who actually serve as evaluators.
Chris, how do you do your final short list? Is it similar, or?
No, ma'am, it's not anything close to what they do.
Okay, what do you guys do?
On the DOD side, I know they had mentioned, well, we'll give you their proposal, we'll give you their contract, we'll tell you if they were first, second, third, fourth. We don't do any of that.
You don't?
No, ma'am. The FAR says that you get the successful offerors, color ratings, and price.
Color?
Right.
Meaning?
For example, if you have past performance, you have technical proposal, and you have a management proposal.
Okay.
We will not score them 100, 95, 87. We don't score them numerically. We use color ratings that one will be green, for example, is meets a requirement. Blue is exceeds the requirement at some level. And purple is really exceeds the requirement by some level. And then on the downside, you have the yellow, which is not so good, and then the red means you can't award. So we would not score a proposal by numerical numbers. We would give them a color coding.
Which means they got into a range of numbers, right?
Well,
sort of, or no?
We have to be very careful because sometimes during the debriefings, because we do debriefings, they'll say, well, how did we score? Well, you didn't get a numerical score. You were just green, or you were just purple. You met the requirement, or you exceeded the requirement because here's some of your strengths. But we won't give them a numerical number. During the debriefings, again, is we won't do a point-by-point comparison between the offeror that was successful and your proposal. We'll tell you, again, what their color ratings are and what they bid as an overall price. And then we'll talk to you about your individual proposal and the issues, strengths, or weaknesses of your proposal so that you can do a better job next time trying to support the government. We typically also do not bring the contractors in on your short list. We call it competitive range. If you're still within a competitive range, then we open what we call negotiations with the companies. But typically, because of our business, we might have companies all over the country, and in some instances, maybe all over the world bidding on our things. So we will not, typically, will not bring them in and sit with them and have a committee listen to their presentation. Sometimes, but typically the answer would be no. We don't do that. And then we do best value, and you mentioned, well, if I offer something above and beyond the requirement, if my price is higher, can I still win? The answer is yes.
Okay.
But you have to look at it and say, okay, if you're offering something of value to the government that far exceeds the requirement, is it worth the extra money that you're asking us to pay you in your proposal? So if you are not price competitive and you have something super duper, then we have to say, okay, is what you're offering worth the $2 million, $10 million, $15 million more that we're going to pay you over the life of that contract? So then it becomes a trade-off analysis. Well, if I have a guy that's green, that means meets all the requirements, and he's $10 million less, then I have to justify to the source selection authority, which is the person that makes the final decision, why I'm willing to pay and spend $15 million more taxpayer dollars to go to this company over this company that met the requirement. So we have to say, okay, this guy's proposal was so fantastic and offered us something so wonderful that we're willing to pay, in my example, $15 million more dollars.
Do you use a panel, as Greg was mentioning, of maybe experts in the particular field too, or do you do it internally with your department?
Well, it depends. Typically, we'll have what we call SSEB, Source Selection Evaluation Board, and those are the technical experts, and they'll get in there and review the proposals. Then we have what we call an SSAC, which is Source Selection Advisory Council, and those are more senior folks that kind of look at the SSEB and how they're doing and what their write-ups are and make sure that they're evaluating properly. And then you have the SSA, the Source Selection Authority, above that group. So at the SSEB level, it might be 5 people, it might be 25 people. They might be all from Tampa. We're doing one today. Some of the source selection evaluators are not from Tampa. It just depends on what we're buying.
We were talking about, you said that the proposals that were submitted by other people, your competitors, are available. Does the SBDC still recommend that you go get them all?
Go get all the...
Go get people who were winning bids so that you see...
Absolutely.
And how
Absolutely.
are they...
And I know for the federal side, also with the city and the school boards, you can actually go online. Chris mentioned FBO. You can also go to FBO, FedBizOps.gov, and look at awards. Look at awards. If they
they'll
find
have the whole proposal
they would have
in there?
the who received the award, the dollar amount, and oftentimes, depending on the agency, they will keep the solicitation or the bids or the proposal highlighted in that particular award notice, and it's electronically. So you'll find out how much the contract was awarded for and who received that contract.
Will you see their proposal exactly, though?
No, not electronically. If you want to see the proposal, well, oftentimes it depends. I don't think you can give the
On the DOD side,
proposal.
we don't give proposals at all.
Even though...
not given.
On the city side, you can come in and look at any bid or proposal and anything in it, as long as it doesn't contain information that's protected by the statutes that keeps it out of the sunshine. And we often do encourage, as Charlene was mentioning, bidders to come in, have a look, talk with the procurement person. That person is going to know more about that contract than anybody. You know, how many orders we place, the frequency of the orders we place, everything about it. And that's valuable information in terms of a company that may be new and bidding on something for the very first time. How much did we actually spend to what we projected we would spend, things like that. All that information is public record.
Same thing for
Same
school
thing at the
board.
school board.
I thought what I saw when I did this kind of stuff for a client back when was sometimes just the nature of the appearance of a proposal. It just, what they added to it, the supplement, sometimes in proposals, they allow you so many pages of additional things to sell yourself. I don't know, a photograph of yourself and your grandchildren, but whatever it is, I would put my grandchildren in and win. No, I'm kidding. No, but I mean different items that they will allow you. You do that still with certain things?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because one of the things that I'm sure you teach your folks this is to follow the instructions.
Yes.
You know,
The hardest thing to do, follow the instructions.
Read the requirements.
You know,
Let's
you
follow the
have to
requirements.
read the instructions and follow them verbatim because there is something that's called non-responsive.
Yes.
And if you don't do it, you know, as you're instructed to do, you can be eliminated for being non-responsive.
Right.
You know,
If I forget to answer one question, for example.
you know, it's usually not that bad, but if you just simply don't follow the instructions, you know, if we've given you a list of products that you're supposed to quote, and you change either the unit of measure or how you're going to deliver that, you know, then you're non-responsive because you're not providing us what we're asking for.
And you're not going to call me and say, hey, by the way, you made a mistake on page 2.
You know,
It's done. It's over.
yeah.
It's over.
Well, I just, it's over, and when it's over, it's over.
That's all. And more to Jean's point, the reason we have those restrictions, Louise, is because we want to be able to take proposal A, proposal B, proposal C, and proposal D, and to compare them side by side. When there are other things that are added to the proposal, it makes it difficult to do an apples-to-apples comparison. So that's why we have those restrictions about this many pages, these are the things we want you to address, so that when I'm comparing companies, I can go to section 1 and look at, you know, paragraph number 7 and find the same thing in proposal B, and I've got an immediate comparison. But if you've got other things that are in there, it's going to make me hard to follow. It's going to make it hard to follow what you've got in your proposal in terms of whether or not it's being responsive or not, as Jean had indicated.
I noticed with these bids we did with these grants we filled out with a couple of the state agency, the Department of Cultural Affairs, that we had a limitation on the number of characters. It was all electronic. And boy, there's nothing like editing to save your life, but you either go on too much and then suddenly it just locks you out and says, you messed up, you know, you're over characters by whatever, twice the amount you need in this thing. So they have really gotten it down where it isn't, I kind of think on the one hand, this is better because it isn't where years ago you could come in and do things that were dog and pony shows, right? Now it's not so much like that.
Not so much.
Because you really are restricted into just this area, just no more than this many
Follow
words.
the terms and conditions.
Right? Exactly, and you better be following that precisely or
Exactly.
you're in big trouble.
Right, correct.
What do you have, all of you, some idea about what you see as always seems to be what makes people more successful at these bids? Besides, I'm sure you're going to say follow direction. Above that, is there something that distinguishes those people so that viewers could try to shoot for that as one of their goals, or?
I think you already said it, where you addressed, you know, go to your pre-bid meeting, attend another pre-bid. You know, there is so much information for people out there to access and learn from that really, you know, you shouldn't have much of an excuse not to do it correctly because you have tools and people to
Resources.
help you. Yes.
It's all about marketing. It's all about networking, establish relationships. You know, beyond the bid openings, attend government conferences where you can meet those buyers and small business specialists to market and network. That is the bottom line, establishing relationships.
Chris?
Well, from where I sit, there's a couple things, and Charlene's heard me say this because she hasn't brought it up, but she holds a conference every year on how to do business with the government, and myself and Nelson Escribano from the 6th Contracting Squadron attend, and some other people attend as well. But what I always tell small businesses, and it goes for large businesses as well, is read, read, read. Because if you don't understand a proposal and you give us something that we don't want, guaranteed you will not win. So you have to read the proposal, or the RFP, request for proposal. You need to understand it. You need to put a good package together, answer the questions, give us what we want, and then you have to have good past performance, because you can tell a story in a proposal, but if your past performance isn't good, it's kind of hard to fix that. And then, of course, the price. And the way the economy is today, you better sharpen your pencil, because there's a lot of hungry folks out there.
Absolutely.
So it's not one or two things, it's a combination of several different things that makes a winning proposal.
Are you seeing that people are lowering what they might have asked for before because they're being more competitive or more concerned about price?
I would say most definitely. And you're seeing a lot of incumbents lose. And the reason is because, well, maybe they're getting a little lazy, maybe they're getting a little complacent. Maybe that's the better word, not lazy, complacent.
Right.
Hey, the government knows us, the school board knows us, the city of Tampa knows us. We've done a good job, and they get a stubby pencil, and they give us the same price they did last year. Well, there's a new guy on the block, and he wants that work, and he wants that job.
Absolutely.
And he sharpens his pencil a little bit more.
I train them.
And the proposals are relatively equal, whether the scores are similar or the colors are similar.
Right.
And then, you know, this guy's just a little more hungry. And then the incumbent sits there afterwards during the debriefing, I can't believe we lost. Well, you got to bring your A game, whether you're incumbent or you're not.
Every time,
'Cause
all the
if you
time.
don't, you're right, every time, all the time. Otherwise, you'll be on the outside looking in, explaining to your boss why you weren't successful.
Well, it's good to hear, too, for the people that are just starting out that it's not going to always go to the incumbent if you're sharp enough and you pay attention. And Charlene told you the scoop on things and all of that kind of thing. I do want to make sure that each one of you gives me, you know, something that maybe I didn't ask about, that you think it's really important for people to follow if they really want to do business with the school board or the city of Tampa, SOCOM, or all of them. You could speak to all of them. I'll start with you, Jean.
There is something unique about the school district I don't think the rest of you deal with, and that's the people that come on our campuses or they have direct contact with our children. They have to be fingerprinted, and it's part of the Jessica Lunsford Act. So there's a fee for that fingerprinting, and it's a level 2 fingerprinting. So that is one of the qualifications. It's both an FBI search and a local Florida search. So if you're a felon,
That's any crime?
Actually,
or is crimes against
a
children?
felon. No, you can't have committed a felony, and ours is a little bit. It's not just crimes against children. So you know, that's another step that you have to go through to work at the district.
What if you're making you're supplying something but not going on the campus? Then
it does not apply. That's correct.
All right.
And if you're working behind a construction fence, those kind of things, there's exceptions.
Okay. All right. So, and other things that you would want to make sure people understand about doing business?
Just that, you know, I haven't been in public procurement as long as I think some of these folks are. And it just never ceases to amaze me how fair and competitive this system is. And it is a fair playing field. And, you know, go out there and try, you know, compete.
And don't be intimidated.
And don't be intimidated.
Exactly.
How about you, Greg?
Just to read the instructions, as you heard all of us say, very, very clearly and thoroughly, to participate, as Charlene talked about, in the pre-bid conferences and the mandatory site visits, to ask questions. And Charlene articulated it well. There is a question and answer period. So if there's anything in a bid or proposal that you don't understand, don't make an assumption. Please just ask the question, because making an assumption can get you thrown out. It's also important to make sure they get your bid turned in on time at the place and time where it's supposed to be. If it's supposed to be at 306 East Jackson Street at 2 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon, at 2:01 when I time and date stamp it, I'm going to hand it back to you because it's late at that particular point in time.
Right.
It's also important to read and acknowledge any addendums that may be issued and to include those in your bid response. A lot of people will tell you, I got the addendum, but I didn't include it in my bid. Well, we don't know that if it hasn't been acknowledged in the bid response. So things like that are very, very important, but they can be very, very serious infractions if you fail to do that. Another thing I'd recommend, if you are in business and we require you to have a certain level of insurance, certain skills and abilities, to make sure that you cross-check all of those things that are in your bid, because when we are ready to award a contract and you say, I don't have insurance, but we list the requirements in the bid, then there's really not an excuse for not having that. So to read the documents thoroughly, follow the instructions as prescribed in the bid, to make sure you sign the document. A lot of people get in a rush, in a hurry, and forget to sign. I can't accept at that point, even though you submitted on time. So things like that will really help you be successful.
Chris, what about you? Is there something you want to make sure a viewer knows about that we didn't cover?
Yes, ma'am. Because of our mission, we have a no-fail mission because, you know, we're out on the front lines. What I recommend small businesses do, if it's not a small business set aside, the best way to get into the command is to team with a large business and ride their coattails in. I said earlier, the dollars, prime dollars are green as our subcontracting dollars are green. But to get into the command is tough. If you can follow in with a large business and be a subcontractor, you'll then learn about SOCOM. You'll be having past performance from SOCOM, which will make you more competitive. What I also tell small businesses, if you get in, the most important thing is to perform. If you perform, it's like a snowball and rolling down the hill. If you get in and you don't perform, it's going to be like Siberia. We will never hear from you again. Don't want to scare folks, but that's just the mission that we have. It's a no-fail mission. Now, if small businesses want to learn about SOCOM, they can call me or email me anytime. That's my job. I meet with small businesses all day, every day, to try to help them understand where they might fit in the SOCOM family. One thing that's important for small businesses to do is to understand your customer too, because we've already talked, a couple of us don't do construction. There's no requirement to call me on a construction requirement because we don't do construction. So if you're a construction business, call Nelson, don't call me.
Okay, well, we'll get that. I want to get
Yes,
Charlene in for last thought before we...
Highly recommend to visit the Small Business Development Center PTAC office, where we can help assist you in being successful in doing business with the government. Visit us at sbdctampabay.com. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com USF-SBDC.
A lot of stuff. I think you guys got a lot of information out during the show. We probably could do a separate show for each one of you, but I truly appreciate that you came out and gave such valuable information on doing business with the government. And we have so many of them right here, with even SOCOM having the Department of Defense right here. Appreciate much all your help, and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time, and good luck with your businesses doing business with the government. Thank you for tuning in.